for instance, the Pharrell episode where he had the big hat. That was you guys. Like what?
No, that was one of my mum's hats. In fact, probably, you know, when she was in partnership with Malcolm, my father, and they did a Buffalo collection.
That's it, yeah.
I do know because we happened to use the same factory to make our hats for the Jago, as my mum uses for World's End in Luton. But so I do know that when that came out, he just couldn't stop making enough of them bloody hats. I don't know.
KILLA podcast. KILLAofficial.com.
THTC, the UK's leading ethical streetwear label. Organically grown and ethically built garments from hemp, organic cotton and other sustainable materials. 2019 is their 20th anniversary year. Join me with THTC as a KILLA podcast sponsor celebrating music, social activism, hemp and street culture. THTC, eco-fashion redefined since 1999. Beatbox created.
KILLA.
And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
KILLA podcast.
Big shout to our friends Graffiti Kings. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the KILLA podcast. Serves you right. Coming to you live and direct Central London, or Central as you need to be. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. Subscribe. Follow. Do not sleep. I repeat, do not sleep on my repeat. So again, the audacity I have. I mean, to have heroes pass through. And this is no exception. Wake Up Punk, Asian Provocateur, child of the Jago, and a legacy to boot, businessman and activist, the mighty Joseph Corré.
Hi there, you all right?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm well. Yeah, I'm well.
It's good to see you. Good to see you in the rise. Yeah, how you been? What's been going on? What's it been? What's it been like for the last 6 months or more? There's been a real kind of a spike in your activity, particularly with the burning of punk memorabilia and the like.
Right, yeah.
How's it been since then?
Well, that's a sort of project that's just about wrapped up. We've been making a film about that.
Have you?
And it's just at the stage now to start showing to some distribution. So the film's called Wake Up Punk.
Yeah.
And it's just really about what all that was all about, burning all that stuff and why. And asking people, I suppose, to question what they really do value.
Yeah, kind of with that, there's a real shock value to that being the decision made and it happening, and the nostalgist in me and like being a fan of that, it's the immediate fear of it. It's like, really? Like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, that must have been really tough, a call for you personally, knowing that this was your childhood, this was whole everything that you grew up with, and all of a sudden it's just like, I'm gonna do this, and I've committed, I'm doing it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's. It was an opportunity, I think, that kind of came along, and it was an opportunity I decided to take to say something that I thought needed to be said. Yeah. And
what needed to be said, though? What was the mission brief that you kind of gave yourself and the people around it?
Well, I think you got to the stage where punk was just selling you something you didn't need. It was kind of offering you this this lie, this idea that you've got this alternative choice of the same thing. And I don't know, and that's why I thought it was an opportunity to say something, particularly when the whole establishment decided to celebrate it. From every institution down, and then I don't know, you got punk rock beer, credit cards, bloody punk rock car insurance, and so what does it really mean anymore? And so it was a question to ask people what they thought it really did mean, and what turned out was it didn't mean anything. It's just a load of old nostalgia. I'm not talking about the designs and things like that. You had some great designs and some great creativity that came out of that whole era and that whole situation, but it's just become a commodity. It doesn't really mean
cultural appropriation,
anything.
Isn't it? That's really what it kind of fell
Yeah,
into.
and so it was asking people to question themselves as well. You know, people go around, I'm a punk, I'm this, I'm that.
By
I
design.
believe in this, I believe in that. I've got this little trunk full of all my little treasures that make up who I am.
Yeah.
Well, really?
Yeah, exactly. What are you actually defining yourself by?
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that about the establishment, man, because like I've had many a kind of inner frustrations of the idea that, you know, like the Olympic Games or the final of when we had it in Britain, and it was almost like they wheeled out all the old classic songs and had this big parade of like Queen meets Bowie meets blah 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 blah. It's all bollocks. They wheel him out and then put him back after. You know, there's no supporting the cultural arts. Only when they decide it's okay to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
For the tourists.
When you're harmless enough, yeah.
Yeah. And that's not really what music should be. It should, you know, from Woodstock onwards, it's like the amount of lives music saves just by being publicly spoken and having a message. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's probably right. In certainly, it saved a lot of people's lives, music, but you know, not least some of the musicians. I don't know. Punk wasn't about music for me, anyway.
No, it was a whole different kind. Right. So look, for those of you that don't know, like, and so Joe's parents, Vivienne Westwood Malcolm Mclaren, and you most certainly. From what I understand, you were probably around the 8 to 10-year-old mark when this was really.
I was born in 1967, so
that's it, nice.
1977 I would have been 10.
Yeah, that's it. So you were like, not only were you incredibly impressionable from a cultural standpoint, but to have these two figureheads that were just like, I mean, that blows my mind in itself. And I'm sure you've had conversations about this all the time. But how influential would you say it had gone, like being so close to the action? Like, what was that like, bro? Was that what? Explain that.
I don't know. I mean, other people have asked me things like that. I don't know how to explain it because it's just my life. And what can I say? I mean, you know, in order to try and explain it in a way that other people want to understand it, I have to start trying to compare myself to other people's lives, and I don't know how to do that really.
It's impossible.
So, you know, I can just say my life was my life, and there were certain things that I was a massive fan of all of that. I found it really exciting when I was a kid. I loved collecting all the records and all the posters, and I loved hanging around with, you know, some of those people from the time, you know, people who used to look after me when I was a little kid and stuff. And then other than that, I don't know, I met some people recently. I was talking to Marco Perrone. He said that he just remembers me as being this really angry kid, and that when I met him, I just sort of came up to him and started kicking him or something. I don't know.
Stop it, really?
So I don't know. Maybe I was angry. I don't really remember. You know, there was a lot of action anyway going on all the time and all around me. And then also I spent a lot of time out of it in boarding schools and places like that as well, so I wasn't there all the time.
Right, so you're living kind of vicariously with everyone else, watching it go on from afar almost.
Yeah, kind of, but it did, you know, there were some quite hairy moments, do you know what I mean? I remember our flats being surrounded by the National Front and all our windows getting smashed and death threats and all of that kind of thing, and I remember just going down the road dressed like a punk was enough to get your head kicked in, you know what I mean?
It's a real kind of war cry, isn't it? It's a real statement to have done that, especially at 10 years old, but like to have a whole generation of kids doing it. It takes a ton of balls, doesn't it? You know?
But there wasn't really any other option. Do you know what I mean?
Emerson, Lake and Palmer and shit like that, I suppose. That's really all you had, wasn't it? Like that and Rod Stewart. Lovely. I mean, the landscape definitely has changed, and there's a lot more freedom in, especially the online world now, of like just putting out what you feel and the expressiveness in that. But yeah, like there's a lot of people that check out this show that were totally not from that time, and the curiosity of that time. I guess it's all quite warm and fuzzy now when we think about it in retrospect, but you were totally on the front line of it. And the whole idea of like your windows getting smashed in or the sex shop getting pounded by, like you say, Chelsea supporters or whoever, that must have been an absolute wake-up call of like, well, we're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think people who were into it at the time just felt a really strong camaraderie. And so even though you were attacked, and you're right, you felt like you were doing something right because you got such a reaction out of people, and all their venom and hate turned towards you instead of where it was supposed to be directed, which was more towards the state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there was a definite camaraderie between the people who were into it because it was like, you crossed a line.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the other thing about punk is it really sort of it created a sanctuary and a place for people who really didn't fit in anywhere else. And so there was a kind of, that was something that was original, in that you had, I don't know, disabled people joining it, people with thalidomide, people who were just couldn't go to school because there was too much trouble or whatever. But, you had whatever, and I think that, that made it quite exciting and interesting in terms of the diversity of people. And it wasn't about, as I said, to me, it weren't really about the music. That was much more about the camaraderie of people and people saying, well, we can create a way out of this. We don't need to follow what's been laid
Gave
out
people
for us.
a voice, didn't it?
Yeah, gave people an alternative. So I don't have to go and work down the coal mine. I can go and be a punk, start a band, be a fashion designer. Be a creative, be an artist, be whatever I want to be.
You're right about the music, actually, because when you really break it down, it's rock and roll, and that's the more edgier the better, the less chords the better, and that's what it cemented itself within a certain time, though, and that certain time is what defines it, and also, like you say, the aesthetic combined with the social message and all the different kind of aspects. That essentially is punk.
Yeah.
And what's going on now, arguably, or most definitely, is it's almost like full cycle. Here we are again in a very similar situation, but with a lot less weaponry like you had with punk. There was...
Yeah, and I think it's also now just become sort of boxed up as a pose. It's been a pose ever since the bloody 70s, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And now it's a pose that belongs to car insurance and punk fucking brewdog. I mean,
Yeah, that must really tickle you.
You got to fucking be some kind of cunt to drink that beer. You really do.
Shut. He's going, look, Joe's in the house. Come on. You're one of the few people that again, to have you on is just a fucking privy because there's not many people that can tell the story as up front. Not many people.
Well, it's just my story. Do you know what I mean? I can't tell the story because there's a lot of people who've got their own story, but it's just my story I can tell, really.
It went through a transition as time went on in that era of punk. What was really kind of inventive and liberating. I can't remember what documentary I saw, but it did suddenly have that uniform. What period in your mind do you remember it being? So all of a sudden everyone was blacked out and it was
it just sort of became the end of it, 78, 79. Something like that. And then, I don't know, but the spirit lived on in lots of other ways and did lots of other things and mutated into lots of other things. And that's fine, that's cool. But I just think people talk about it today like I don't know what it is. It's just a word that doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything, does it? Yeah. It's actually
It's
quite...
a word you stick on beer or stick on credit cards or whatever to give you this illusion of an alternative choice that you never had in the first place. It's still fucking car insurance and it's still a fucking credit card.
Yeah. That's all you're left with, isn't it, really?
Well, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? That's what it is.
With your mum and dad being so, like, the aesthetic, the look, the feel, like, that had moved on. And what was their take on it from a fashion point of view? Because this is where it gets really interesting for me, because
their take on it was different, I think. I mean, it's interesting talking about all this stuff, but it's a lot of the stuff that I've been covering in this film I've been making.
Oh, so we won't go too deep into it. No, absolutely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do. You know, I think all of these sort of questions are questions I've heard before, so I think the film tries to answer quite a lot of those things, and you know. It is interesting. It's, you know, I mean, I think we shot like 150 hours of film or something, and then you've got to get it down to an hour and a half. Do you know what I mean? But there's lots of stuff in there. You're going, God, that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. It's quite a lot. You know what I mean?
That's going to be like massive. So this is going to come out in the next? You're planning.
Well,
I
don't know. We're just about finished and got it into position to start showing it to distributors now. Really, it's an independent film. It's kind of weird because I don't know, it doesn't fit into the pigeonholes of the film industry. You know, it's not quite all documentary. There's some fantasy parts to it, so it's sort of part film doc, a bit art house. It don't really fit into any genre. So
by design,
it's going to be interesting getting some distribution.
By design, it can't be quite fitted in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the irony, I love it. I love it. Wow, that much content. I mean, you must have gone through the archive, and I dare say there's going to be some gems that have never even been broadcast in there.
Well, it's a lot of the family story, and it's a lot of the reasons about, you know, I don't know, people from the time talking about what was important. And kind of making it relevant to today. You know, I mean, I guess one of the points that's been central to it, and one of the themes, which is also about the reasoning behind all that burning and everything in the first place, is this idea that how can I put it, that, you know, it became a marketing exercise in the end, and that's what punk has clearly become today. You've seen, we're just talking about, you know, you've seen the punk rock McDonald's bloody advertising, you've seen every kind of nonsense that you have, so you know that it's a marketing exercise. But the main thing it was marketing, and this is the reason that, you know, what Vivienne says in the film, the reason why she got out of it was, isn't England, isn't Britain this wonderful free society where we have all these rebels that we tolerate? Not only do we tolerate, but we sell them internationally as part of our culture. And that's why they stay in their little box.
That's right.
And that's why they want to stay in their little box. And if you try and get them out of the box and say, no, burn it all, it's all meaningless, they're the first ones to scream and cry and tell you why you've got to keep hold of it and how important it is and how you're destroying the nation's culture.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
that's right.
And so that was the reason why she got out of it. And you know, looking at people like Johnny Rotten today, and like, I mean, you know, that geezer hasn't had anything interesting to say in 40 years. You know, he's just like this oaf that kind of, you know, carries on rocking or something. I mean, you know, it's like, it's become, it's a marketing exercise to sell you something you don't need.
Yeah, and then things have moved on, yet Johnny still seems to, like, hold...
Well, it's just playing a role like a caricature. It's a punk rocker, you know.
Yeah. Moving forward a little bit. So, Agent Provocateur. How did that come up? I mean, what we're talking, like, mid-90s? This was...
I started that first shop in 1994. Yeah, 1994, December.
How did that come to fruition? Like,
well, I've been working for my mum actually for about 8 or 9 years, and helping her re-establish her business after she split up with my father, and it all turned to shit for a while, and then. I don't know, I was helping her for about 8 years, something like that, and it got to the point, for various reasons, where I sort of decided I needed to leave and go and do my own thing. And I got interested in lingerie, and in fact...
So do I.
Yeah, and in fact, I had this sort of earlier idea that where I was going to do this kind of mini department store that was all about the erotic, and have lots of different departments in there, from art to furniture to books to food to lingerie to whatever,
Wow,
I tried to get that together by borrowing as much money as I could and selling everything I had. Interestingly, actually sold a lot of that memorabilia at that time as well, and then ended up buying it back years later.
That's amazing. So it's
But
only
I
borrowed.
couldn't have
You're only
started
borrowing it.
I couldn't. That's how I started Agent Provocateur. Actually, in the first place, was selling that memorabilia, and it was only years later that I bought it back.
Good for you. Ain't that the way?
But,
Love it.
But yeah. So anyway, that didn't work out for various reasons. Couldn't quite get the money together, so I decided to take one part of it, which was the lingerie part of it, and I got a shop in Broadwick Street. It's still there today. But at that time in Broadwick Street in Soho, I mean, like, every other shop was empty, and so it was kind of tough. There was a lot of empty shops around Soho.
So you had to pick at a crop, really, didn't
well, yeah, I think that shop, the first year, for the entire year's rent, I think it was $7,000, because I got 6 months rent free. So it was $14,000 for the year, and I paid $7,000. And I made all my money back by Christmas. So I opened in something like the 5th, 6th of December. By December the 24th, I made all my money back.
That's incredible. Can I ask you something? Because,
So I knew it was going to be a goer from that point on.
I think
it
I've
just
got
went
something
like
here.
a mushroom, But it was great. It was a great company.
Can I ask you something? And this is probably more of a personal question than anything else, but, like, when you go into investing in a business, particularly in a market such as lingerie, which in itself is, it's niche. Like,
why did I go into it?
No. I was going to ask you, what's the process of setting up a business within a niche? Like, what are the risks? What are the things you actually have to, like, to what degree do you have to kind of, how do you gather the money? I mean, you've answered that one, but, like, what are the other risks that incur with?
Well, it's different today in terms of how it was, well, the risks are that it doesn't work and you go bust. I mean, that's basically the risk. I mean,
I guess a lot of people use credit cards, and a lot of there's a lot
sometimes
of
it's easier
thinking.
to borrow money on credit cards than it is through the bank when you're starting a business. I remember having to do that loads of times. The only problem is the interest on the credit cards is 5 times as much as the bank.
Yeah.
But if it's short term, sometimes it works.
On a scale of 1 to 10, like, where are your nerves when you're dashing out on the credit card? And I mean, obviously it was a different time then, but like now, I guess it would be a whole different kettle of fish. You've got to have some real strong self-belief that it's going to happen.
Well, I think things were different then to now, mostly because the retail landscape has changed so much. At that time, people were still, shops were important, and niche shops were important. They made the neighbourhood, they made the scene. They were the thing that attracted people to that area.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, my mum's shop down in the King's Road in World's End. I mean, there'd be no shops around there if it wasn't for that shop. Do you know what I mean? No one's going to be schlepping all the way down the bottom of that road just to go to Johnson's. They might do if Johnson's was the only thing that was left there. I mean, I know they closed down some time ago, but I'm saying that, you know, things sort of happen in a certain space because of what's there.
That's right.
And you know, that makes an area. Maybe not one of them can do it on its own, but collectively they make a kind of sizable enough thing that people want to go and visit, right? And find something that they like. But now, if you were starting a brand, I mean, people don't think about getting a shop. It's all online.
It's all online.
And maybe they'll have a pop-up shop or something. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't shop online. No. I don't know how to.
Yeah.
I don't. It's, you know, I don't really do it.
Like when I think of Farringdon, I think of fabric. Maybe that's my generation, but that makes a play. Like that's why people mostly go to Farringdon in the evening. Or like you say, I mean, Supreme is in Soho now. I think of that place.
You see, I don't even understand that shop. I see people queuing up.
It drives me mad, bro. It drives me fucking mad.
And I look at the things that they buy, and I think, why?
Yeah, I agree.
What is it?
I mean, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not hating, but I agree. Like,
I just can't see anything about it that makes it kind of desirable. It's almost, I mean, it's a sort of funny version of Emperor's New Clothes, because it's like all of them kids, when they're into something, they're just into it. They don't care what it looks like. It's got to have that name on it, otherwise they're not looking cool, and they're desperate to look cool all the time. So that's what they do. But I can't understand it. I just look at it and think, I don't know, I don't understand it.
Can I ask you, what was the upshot? I mean, Supreme is a great example of like people wearing shit, and all of a sudden you got a queue down the block, which still for me is like, well, you're just sheeping. You try and be like everyone else. But for you, like with for instance, the Pharrell episode where he had the big hat. That was you guys. Like what? No,
that was one of my mum's hats. In fact, probably, you know, when she was in partnership with Malcolm, my father, and they did a Buffalo collection.
That's it, yeah.
So yeah, that's just a.
What was the upshot on that? Him wearing that from a brand point of view, did that create a ton of attention on those particular hats? Or?
Well, that's my mum's baby rather than mine. You know what I mean? So I don't really know, but I do know because we happen to use the same factory to make our hats for the Jago, as my mum uses for World's End in Luton. They're a traditional hat maker, and have been making hats for my family for years and years. But so I do know that when that came out, he just couldn't stop making enough of them bloody hats. I don't know. He held up production for months, making more of them hats.
That's kind of what I want to hear. But actually, you know what? And while you segue into that, a lot of manufacturing that does go to other countries. I love the fact that you guys, you know, like your mum goes to Luton and has the bespoke hats made in the country. That's amazing.
Yeah. That was the thing with the Jago as well. I mean, and also, you know, when I finished, when I left Agent Provocateur, because I couldn't work with the idiots that were running it anymore, the people who bought it. You know, I've sort of been working in this thing where, you know, the bigger something gets, the more kind of anti-creative it becomes.
Like it almost becomes like a system.
It becomes like a system, and it becomes where, you know, the bean counters and the accountants get involved in sort of telling you the parameters for creative decisions, and that becomes just ridiculous. But at the same time, you can see what they're saying, because, you know, if you've got one or two shops and you're making something pretty creative, and it's, you know you're not going to sell loads of them, but it's something that you're really into and you want to have just a few of, well, that's all right. But if you've got 150 shops, you know, you have to either decide, well, I'm only going to put that in 2 shops, or I can't do it. You know, because you ain't going to sell, you know, even if you did one in each size. And when we were doing bras, you know, that's like 24 sizes just to have one of each, you know what I mean? And then you got, so that's 24 in a shop just to have one of each size. And so you multiply that by 150 shops, and then, you know, you start all of those little decisions you make, suddenly have this this big effect. And it gets really boring having to tread that line. It gets really boring, really anti-creative, and
I bet it gets quite solitary as well. I'd imagine, like, with the pressures that, like you say, those numbers are insane, and like Agent Provocateur at the time was, I mean, it set the bar of like lingerie on the market.
Yeah, of
so
course.
so the pressure on you and the team at the time must have been pretty.
Well, I never really felt that because I sort of lived it so much. It was. I just knew who we were. I knew how to stay where we were, and I enjoyed it. Sort of later on, when those kind of I think what happens, and when it becomes sort of anti-creative because you get to a size where you're sort of churning it out, is you start working to a formula, and then you're just putting like icing on the formula. You're putting a few cherries on the top, and then that becomes a formula, and then it's just boring. Yeah,
because you kind of lose. The perspective slowly starts going, and
I guess
the
people
tolerance
coming in from these, from all these people that start, as you got bigger and you got all these kind of different roles created. But one of them started like researching the how well the things that had been put on display in the window were selling. So tracking how many sales, you put that set in the window. Does that make a difference? Are you suddenly selling loads more and loads? And I was like, and at the same time, it was but the amount of time they would only hold one of each item in stock in the store, and so the amount of time that it took them to get another one in when you sold one was like 3 or 4 days or whatever, and you were continually losing sales in between. It's one of these things that's supposed to be efficient. And is actually really stupid and it makes you lose sales, but they'll defend it to the end because they don't want to invest that bit more money in a bit more extra stock.
That's
you know
insane,
what I mean?
isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
So it makes it really efficient. But anyway, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I was listening to this conversation. I poked my head in some directors' meeting, management meeting. That's what they were talking about. I was like, I don't fucking care whether we've sold more of that set in the bloody window. The point is you make the window display to get people in the shop and then you sell them something. Yeah. I don't care what's in the window. It's just got to look great all the time.
Yeah, just...
Don't track whether that your window display's been like successful because you sold more of those outfits than
sounds
another
very jobs
one.
worth, doesn't it?
It's just ridiculous. Anyway, and that's how it became. But now... retail, the rents on everything's gone so ridiculous that no one can really afford to rent it. It's all chain stores. And the soul's got sort of knocked out of all the places that used to sort of be where people would, make a bit of a scene and
you
hang
mentioned
out,
you mentioned hanging out, and you mentioned actually about the what makes a community, what makes a place people go to, and I do feel with. I mean, it's so easy to fall down that gentrification conversation, but where is everything going now? Like, where there used to be a pub.
It's kind of interesting. I don't know. It's kind of interesting because it's gone so extreme that the rental market for retail, and it's gone to the point where it's totally unaffordable. So you're just going to see this closure of retail space right across the board. For the next few years at least. And that's where it's going to become interesting because what are they going to do with all them empty shops? And maybe that'll provide an opportunity for people to do something interesting with it. But it's just been, because of all this speculation and investment over the last 10, 20 years in London, where it's not like traditional landlords that are, got a bit of property and they're renting out a bit and it's their pension money or something like that. It's you've had investors investing in retail funds, projecting these ridiculous returns to all their investors, and they've all taken that money and invested it in all this property. So they can't turn around and go, well, I'll give you half price rent. Because they've already told their investors that they're going to be getting X return, right? Wow, so they have to keep making more and more and more money, otherwise their whole fund looks like shit and no one wants to invest in them anymore. So,
and it just keeps on turning. And I guess this is
So
where...
you've got to wait for them all to sort of go bust.
Yeah. Oh, my
and
God,
then,
yeah.
And then someone will get it for next to nothing, and then there might be an opportunity for people.
How long that will be, we don't
Well, I don't know, but it's all going to happen.
How many trees and how many fucking whatever's they got to burn down to keep manufacturing the bollocks that they're needing to help pay the fucking thing off, huh?
Yeah.
But then that's a whole different conversation that we will definitely get into now. Child of the Jago, right?
Yeah.
Now, I came across this brand when I was with... I did a long stint with Judy Blame, hanging out with him and Dave Baby and co. And Carly, I think it was Carly. I met Carly. She introduced me to you and the Child of the Jago brand.
Yeah.
Bro, like, I was infatuated with it for so long, man. Like, it was just like, this is awesome. This is like, you know what I mean? It's like New Romantics meets kind of, I don't know, it just had a real kind of the tailoring and the feel about it. It just had a real Britishness to it and charm. How on earth did... Because this is like one extreme to another in my mind.
Well, that's what I was saying before. Is when Agent Provocateur became so sort of anti-creative, that's when I started A Child of the Jago, really. And I did it purposefully to see whether I could make something like that business work to be intentionally small. And I never wanted it to be big. I just wanted it to stay really small. And I wanted to see whether I could make it work. And, it's been tough. It's actually been going about 10 years now. We had 2 shops, one in Charing Cross Road and the original one in Shoreditch. I ended up closing the one in Shoreditch about a year or so ago because the rent, tripled.
Yeah. I used to love that shop as well. It was wicked.
Yeah, it was a nice shop. Yeah. But, and also the formula that I kind of have been always trying to make work is sort of buying up the fabrics from what's left over from the fashion industry. So buying up all the best quality fabrics I can find. I will particularly work with, some old traders in the East End, but also an Italian agent. And actually end up with a lot of British cloths that's in the first place sold to a lot of the big Italian design houses for their sample rooms and stuff like that.
Really? Wow.
But anyway, so I buy it in that way, which is, less than half the price that I would have to pay to the mill. Yeah. And then that sets what I can make, So if I buy 30 metres, what's left on the roll of that fabric, that's all I can make out of it. But then I pass the cost benefit of buying it in that way onto the customer, so that the things don't end up being too expensive. And I still make everything here in London or in the UK in a small way. And it's kind of working, you know what I mean? It's kind of working, but still the scale of the rents is too much, and the rates now as well. I know it all sounds a bit boring talking about rent and rates, but it is actually a thing that just makes it, if you're just about surviving and making a few quid and you can afford to kind of keep the thing going, that's good, 'cause it's a good thing to do and stuff. But if you're losing money and the rates and rent just keeps going through the roof, you've just got to call it a day, because it's, it's a waste of time.
Do you fly close to the wind with that? Is that something that you fly real close to the wind?
Yeah. But, try and make it work. But anyway, I'm sort of sick of that, so I'm getting my own place anyway, and I'll be moving into there.
So you're going to buy a spot and then just... That's
Yeah, I've got it already, yeah.
Terrific.
In
care to indulge? Soho, all right, yeah. Wicked.
But it'll be about another year before that's ready.
Oh, how awesome's that? Yeah. I noticed, right, so as we were just about to go record, I noticed you fingering my cloth on the...
Fingering your cloth?
Yeah, fingering my cloth, darling. But,
don't you mind.
But is that kind of...
Yeah.
I don't miss a beat. KILLA podcast always keeps it uncensored. But, and I noticed that, and, some people, if they're into records, they go into the record collection over there. Next thing I'm telling them, what are you doing? And like they're going through all the stash. But that must be quite an impulsive thing for you. When you're dealing with cloth and on the creative side of it. Is that part of it, like the discovery aspect, or seeing something? You're like, oh, the fuck's that?
It is, but it's also I don't know. There's this kind of, I don't know. If you talk to a sculptor or something, they'll tell you it's the bit of stone they found told them what to do with it, or you see the shape in the stone, and I think that's some of that's true about fabric. I don't want to get all poncy and sort of say, oh, it's like a sculpture. No, I mean, I don't do that. I kind of do sort of, I don't know, very sort of theatrical British style.
That's the one, yeah.
And so, it's true that certain cloths and fabrics fall in a certain way, have a certain kind of quality, behave in a certain way, and look good used in a certain way. And they do tell you that when you look at the fabric, but you don't always get it right either.
Yeah.
And that's the other nice thing about having something small, is you've got the ability to experiment.
Yeah, it's almost like you go back to ground zero when you're able to, you're working.
Yeah, you do. And I think also for me now it's going to definitely be more towards the direction of getting people having things made what they want, rather than buying so much stuff off the peg.
Yeah, because the bespoke side of things more than ever. I mean, there's a DIY to a lot of fashion now anyway. So if you can be the middleman of the brand itself and people loving the brand for what it is, but you're the chef and you're manufacturing it there to there, tailoring. That's a real sweet spot, isn't it?
Well, I just think people, they've become sort of unknowledgeable and a bit ignorant about the way things are made and how to make something, as well as what fits them, what looks good on them, making those sort of choices about those details and stuff. That I think people have become a bit ignorant about all of that. It's just, see it on bloody social media, click it, buy it, cheap fashion, disposable fashion, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't like it, bro. I'm not into it.
Well, it's terrible. It's just pollution.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, the idea that we go back to trying to make things, and we make things to order and make things to fit, I think is something that interests me. Anyway.
Yeah. What's your creative process? Because as a businessman, obviously you're revered, within fashion. But what's your creative process? Like, do you have impulsive kind of, I've got an idea for that, or you see a piece of fabric that
I don't know. I've always been a very I've always kind of looked at things. I don't know. I get fascinated by certain things, or look at the detail, notice things, notice details, and it becomes a sort of bit of a library in your mind. And so, and then, you might see something that really inspires you, or you'll see a bit of cloth and it kind of connects with an idea that you had, and I sort of go on in that way, really, and I do things that I like. I mean, I've always been a bit of a cocky cunt as well, do you know what I mean? And I like dressing up and everything. So I like being flash, and I like being a bit Jack the Lad, and I like the flashness of that, and I like the cockiness of it.
It's like the individuality.
It's cheeky and it's good, and it's flash at the same time. So although people can sort of try and attempt to take the piss, they actually can't, because it's actually really good.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Do you know what I mean?
And
so they can try, but actually they know that you just look fucking really good.
You fucking know. Yeah. It's a new clobber, mate. It's true though, isn't it? It's true. And there's something peacocky about it, but at the same time, it's fact. I think everybody, especially nowadays in a social media world, they think they're being unique,
right.
but they're not being unique.
No.
It's like the identity's kind of lost in people, isn't
I
it?
don't know. Do you know what? I have to come in. I have to admit, I don't actually do social media. I don't take any notice of it. I find I don't even understand why people do.
It's a funny one, isn't it?
I don't do any of it. And occasionally I have people that work for me, and we try and sort of put certain messages out or put things together and put them on social media. But I can't do it. I just can't do it. I've tried. I have tried, and people keep trying to show me how to do it. I just forget straight away afterwards because it doesn't interest me.
Yeah, I know.
It really doesn't.
There's a lot of repetition.
It's a shame because I think it's probably a way of really communicating with people. But then I don't know if it is anymore. It seems to be so sort of controlled and manipulated anyway.
It totally is. Yeah.
That I don't know what it is really.
What it is what used to be like a secondary idea after something. I was like, I'll take a photo of that, and you post it. Now, because of the algorithms and the way that, for instance, Instagram want you to be on the fucker all the time, they will intentionally lower the views and the numbers of people that see your picture.
Yeah, sure.
That then makes you want to do another one an hour later.
Right.
And and then before you know it, your whole life is rotating around this one thing. So you're right. It has lost the appeal and the initial catch of what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Don't know.
Just get other people to wear it. And then.
Well, anyway, don't know. I it just doesn't fit with me. I don't do it. I can't.
Do you have a notepad, or do you like? I mean, now I'm getting really geeky, and I'm going techers on you. Right? Do you have a pad and a pen, like where you're walking around in a place and you just?
I don't walk around with them, but I have them everywhere I go.
Do you? Yeah. Is your yard? Hey, okay, I'm getting personal now. So tell me, shut up if it's all right. But do you have is your place you live? Is it a haven for creative output, or would you say it's your private
No, not
place?
really. No, not really. It's kind of like a bit of peace and quiet. Actually, it's a bit of an escape.
Yeah.
But I've got a nice working area there, and I live on the top floor, so I've got really nice air and windows, and I can
beautiful.
I've got nice views. You know what I mean?
I've
So
got a
it's
nice
nice
view.
to sit there and think and work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't have that so much. That's a luxury. I would
It
imagine.
is, isn't it? Definitely, it is a luxury to live on the top.
Yeah.
I never knew before until I got this apartment.
How much of a difference it makes.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Space to think and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just feels like, because you're so sort of used to being a bit crammed in London everywhere, aren't you? You know? And somehow when you're on the top, you suddenly got all this space. You know?
Time to think. And your workspace, the opposite end. So that's in another location. And do you have other people working there with you, coming up with?
Yeah. I mean, on the Jago, I work with my partner Claire, Claire English. She's a jeweller by trade, and she does all the jewellery for the shop. But she's also doing women's wear design now and working out on the retail. So we really work together on that. And then I'm sort of involved in all my activism stuff. I've been fighting fracking for the last 7-8 years. That never seems to end, even though we beat them and kill them all the time. They still keep getting up, coming back like the Triffids or something, you know.
Like hit them on the hammer and they go back in the ground, they come back up again, hit them in the hammer.
Yeah, I know, that's what it's like. We've beaten them in the bloody courts, we've beaten them everywhere, and they just still keep coming back. But I think they're nearly dead. They're definitely the walking dead. Yeah, the fracking industry. It's
definitely an area that we haven't covered yet, and I wholeheartedly respect your stance on that and your mum's, and just fighting the fight, against what is ultimately going to be the destruction.
Yeah. I mean, this is it, isn't it? I mean, there's, I don't know. A couple of years ago, if you'd speak to anybody about climate change and whatever, people agreed with you, but they all had this sort of feeling of like, yeah, but what can we do about it? There's nothing we can do about it, I agree, but what can we do? And I think today, a few years later, even now, people are not thinking that so much. They're actually going, wow, there's a whole host of stuff I can do. I can change my energy supplier to ecotricity or a green energy supplier. I can stop eating so much meat. I can stop buying this product. I can, I can choose the way I travel. There are things that everybody can do and must do.
Have to do.
about that. You know, what I buy, who I support or I don't support. You know, every pound you spend is a vote, isn't it? And so, you know, those are all the sorts of things people can do from still, unfortunately, this sort of consumer point of view. But there is then everything else you can do, which is go and demonstrate, go and talk to your MP, go and protest, go and join in, you know. And there's all of that stuff people can do. But, yeah, I don't know. For me, on that fracking thing, it was a really, I suppose, personal decision and promise that I made to myself, because I think, you know, you can't do everything. You can't fight plastic and climate change and poverty and social injustice and genocide and all of the things that are going on all over the world. You can't fight all of them effectively at the same time.
That's right, it's true.
So, so for me, I decided I was going to focus on that monster of the fracking industry. And I don't know, I've made some good friends along the way. Bez has become one of my good pals since I started fighting, which is really nice.
Bez, Happy Mondays, Bez.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
Yeah. He's become one of my good pals since, you know, and that because we started trying to both do something about fracking.
That's beautiful,
yeah.
Oh, it's great.
I made a lot of other nice friends through that as well, and you know, people outside the courtrooms and local villages, and it just been really, really cool. You know what I mean? In terms of
really
the community of people that have that you meet and you know, can support and stuff. It's good.
Fucking awesome. You are very much a people's person, aren't you? I mean, you really do like. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Yeah, do I? Am I? I
Yeah,
don't know.
think so.
I just think I don't like. I guess from growing up as a punk, I kind of didn't ever sort of believe the lie, and you know, and I can sort of see through the propaganda and the shit. And once you have people coming around to smash your windows and trying to hate you and everything, actually, there's no fear of that anymore. Yeah. And so. It's quite a benefit to me in my life is that you can be fearless about these things and just stand up for what you think is right.
Fearless, that's a word that, because whether it be in business, protesting, creating, you are fearless.
Well, I think that's the thing. I mean, in business as well, it's funny. It's like another thing that happened to me in my life was. In the 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher was in power, and all of the council flats were being sold off, and in our block where we lived in Clapham, quite a few of the flats got sold off, and I remember just all these sort of estate agents coming round, and one of the estate agents bought this flat downstairs from us. And I went to welcome him, and he told me to go and get some new curtains for my flat. He said, "You let him down the thing." I was so like outraged. Yeah. I had my mates go and burgle his house that night and nick all his stuff. Do you know what I mean? But from that point on, I thought, there's no way that, you know, if that's all it is now, it's all about money and everything, I'll fucking run rings around you. I'm not, you know, it's not... and so there is a sort of fearlessness that comes with all of that, but... there's nothing that people... Yeah, and an aggression, yeah. As I said, people said I was a very angry kid. I don't know what. Yeah, I laugh about that nowadays.
Man, you know... Aggression is something you have to kind of have installed in you, or at least an athleticism, particularly with business. You know, you're going up against giants, and you know, very similarly to estate agents. You know what I mean? Who to me, I can't deal with estate agents at the best of times. You know, sometimes I bump into one in a pub, and I'm just like, "I'll see you later." You know, not really much in common here. But yeah, you've kind of really got to have like a solid hard head on you to jump in at the deep end with some of these business things that people that you know the Richard Bransons of the world, and you know what I mean? It takes a lot of balls, doesn't it?
Well, when you meet all those people, actually you find out that they haven't got any balls. and they're a bit pathetic, really. And they've all got like, and you just think, I don't, you know, most of them have just got lucky.
So it's bravado. It's what your perception of them and how they've kind of, because like your Simon Cowells of the world and your Richard Bransons.
I mean, you just look at these people. I don't know. They're more. I mean, Simon Cowell. What is that? Do you know what I mean? It's like a bit of walking plastic. I mean, I don't.
I get you.
I thought, what? Who
What's
cares?
going on? Yeah.
I mean, who cares what that man thinks? What his stupid teeth look like? I mean, who cares? It's Richard Branson. I don't know. You know, we people put these sort of business people up as if they're like all these celebrities, as if they've got some kind of something to teach us, something that we all need to know about. We don't need to know anything from them people
At all. Yeah.
There's nothing that they can teach you. None of them.
Not
one of them.
I get that with age. Like I've realised you realise the strength in yourself, but also the power of money. If you are a man with power and money, to go up against those guys and just fuck them, like it suddenly becomes you become a lot more stronger, knowing that you've risen to them in that respect.
Yeah, sure, but also I think the other thing is if you know that you've come from a point of not having any money, you actually don't have any fear to go back to not having any money. Yeah. So you don't. It's like, well, what can you do?
What have I got to lose?
There's nothing you can do to me.
I love that.
What I mean?
That is so liberating. I love it. And as creatives, just going back to what we were talking about from an eco point of view, a lot of people that check the show, they are creatives or inspired to be and do. I think by default, and you'll be the same, our eco footprint is pretty fucking low, just by design, because we're not the most, we're not the most richest of people that are just like go from consumerism, yeah. And yeah, if more people took an account for what they do and creative impulses, and even if you're stuck as an estate agent, do you know what I mean? There are a lot of means and ways of, I don't know, just be creative with things and not be totally have disposable income that you can just go and get the thing. Be creative, innit?
Well, I do think that there's really a brilliant thing in being able to make things yourself, whatever it is, and learn how to make other things. And I think that's just really that is a bit liberating, being able to fix things, being able to, I don't know, find things and do them up. If you go around to people's houses who've had it all done, and everything's new, and all their furniture's new, and all their things new, and it's all new stuff, you just go in there and feel like you're in a hotel. You don't feel like it's at home. You go around someone's house who's collected things that they found over years, and it's like it's more of a house. It's more natural.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like those birds you see on David Attenborough making their little nests with all their little beetle shells and pretty flowers and whatever. It's about collecting things and arranging them in a way that is creative.
I agree.
And that, there's so much pleasure in that. There's no pleasure in buying everything new and having it all like
IKEA
installed. I mean, that's the worst, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the worst.
I hate it. I can't stand it. Okay, boring question.
It seems mad as well, though, doesn't it? Because I mean, if you go past a charity shop, they've invariably got a really nice set of china. Might not be the best set of china, but it's a nice set of china, Royal Dalton or something, mainly, and it's there for like 25 quid or something for the whole set. But people would rather go to IKEA and buy white plates and things, because they're new.
Yeah, it does my head in.
And they cost 3 times the price of the nice thing in the charity shop. And you're giving your money to the charity as well. Okay. So, and you're not buying something new. You're not consuming something. What about buying more second-hand things?
Does my sweet that? Yeah.
People don't want to buy old things, do they? I don't know why.
I like places where it feels like not only it's been lived in, but it feels like you're stepping into a moment that you need. I don't know, just looking at, like, I mean, I do it here to a degree, but, like, you know, you feel like, okay, what environment am I in? It feels like it's been lived. It feels like there's a character here. There's a, do you know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
Love that.
Of course.
I love that.
Of course.
Bit of boring question time, but has to be asked. Who are your favourite designers over the years? Who are the people that have inspired you?
In fashion,
Yeah.
well, I haven't got many. I've always thought John Paul Gaultier was great. Actually, I've always been a fan of his. I don't know. I've liked some of Cherry Mugler's things before in the past as well. But you know, my mum tops them all anyway. So you know,
Talk that shit. Talk that shit. That's a fucking lutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
so I don't, you know, I don't know a lot of it. John Galliano's always been a really nice guy as well. I've known him for a long time. He's always been nice and supportive. I've always liked him as a person, you know.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think we've come to the end. Come to the end. I mean,
Good. I'm going to go and get the tube then.
thank you so much, brother.
Right.
Honestly, pleasure to meet you. You know what I mean? Wicked. Look, I'm sure there's loads more other questions, but, you know, he's only got so much time, you know. So thank you so much for passing through. KILLA podcast. Joseph Corré. Yeah, you listen. Honestly, it's a pleasure, bro. Thank you so much. KILLA podcast. We are like in and out as a fashion. And, yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Peace. AG Dentistry. In my line of work, not only does what I do with the mouth get reviewed, it's also my instrument. And it's beyond important to me that my teeth get the professional service they deserve. The AG family provide expert dentistry, whether it's NHS or cosmetic. They're the finest in London. Head over to agdentistry.co.uk for more information on treatments and prices. AG Dentistry.